In the heart of a small village, there lived a young boy named Eze. Eze was clever in many ways. He could climb the tallest trees, make the best kites, and tell the funniest jokes. But there was one thing he struggled with: school. While his friends spent time studying and reading, Eze often found himself daydreaming about adventures in far-off lands, wishing he didn't have to do schoolwork at all. His books lay dusty, his homework unfinished, and his grades were barely passing. One sunny afternoon, Eze was walking home from school, kicking a small pebble along the dirt path and whistling a tune, when something shiny caught his eye. Lying right in the middle of the path was a pen, but not just any pen. It sparkled and shimmered under the bright sunlight, almost as if it was calling out to him. Intrigued, Eze bent down to pick it up. The pen felt warm in his hand, and its surface glowed in a way that made it look magical. Eze couldn't resist its charm and decided to keep it, slipping it into his pocket before heading home. That night, he was supposed to do his homework for the next day's class. Eze hadn't paid much attention to the lesson, and his mind was already drifting to other things when he remembered the pen he had found. Well, he thought, why not give it a try? He sat down at his table, opened his notebook, and held the glittering pen over the page. As soon as he touched the pen to paper, something incredible happened. Words flowed from the tip of the pen smoothly, effortlessly, like a river. Somehow, he was able to complete all the answers, even though he hadn't studied or remembered anything from class. It was as if the pen itself knew the answers. The next morning, Eze handed in his assignment, feeling curious but skeptical. His teacher, Mr. Udo, raised an eyebrow as he glanced over Eze's work. The teacher even called him up to the front of the class. "Eze, this is the best work you've done all year," Mr. Udo said, looking at him with surprise. "Did you study very hard last night?" Eze's heart raced, but he managed a small nod, hiding a smile. Inside, he knew he hadn't studied at all. It had to be the pen. That day, he received full marks on his assignment. His classmates were shocked, his teachers were impressed, and Eze felt a new sense of pride. He couldn't believe his luck. All he needed was that magical pen, and school would be easy. As days turned into weeks, Eze began using the pen for all his homework and tests. Whenever he sat down with the pen, the answers seemed to come to him without effort. His grades went up, and he became the best student in his class. The teachers praised him, his parents were overjoyed, and Eze enjoyed the attention. But there was one problem. Eze was still not learning anything. Since he didn't need to study, he spent his free time playing, wandering the village, and avoiding his books. Whenever he had homework, he simply relied on the pen to get him through it. At first, Eze didn't mind. After all, he thought, why work hard when the pen does all the work? But soon, strange things began happening. He noticed that whenever he used the pen, he would feel extremely tired afterward. Sometimes, he even felt dizzy, as if the pen was draining his energy. One night, he even dreamed about the pen. In his dream, a deep, mysterious voice spoke to him. "Be warned, young Eze," it said. "The true power of learning comes from within, not from shortcuts." Eze woke up with a start, his heart pounding. He thought about the dream for a moment, but quickly brushed it aside. "It's just a silly dream," he told himself. "This pen is all I need." A few months later, Eze's school announced a big exam. It was the most important test of the year, one that would determine if he could move on to the next level. Eze felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He hadn't been paying attention in class, and he knew nothing about the subjects. But he wasn't too worried. He had the magic pen, after all. The night before the exam, Eze didn't study. Instead, he went to bed early, confident that the pen would get him through. The next morning, he walked into the classroom with a smile on his face, the pen safe in his pocket. As the teacher handed out the exam papers, Eze took out his pen and began to write. But as soon as he started, a terrible surprise awaited him. The pen stopped working. No matter how hard he tried, no ink would come out. The once glittering pen now looked dull and lifeless. Eze's heart raced as he shook the pen, hoping it would start again. But nothing happened. The minutes ticked by, and Eze was left staring at a blank exam paper. His classmates were busy writing, but Eze had no idea how to answer any of the questions. For the first time, he felt the panic of not knowing what to do. The questions looked like they were written in a foreign language. Without the magic pen, he realized how little he actually knew. When the time was up, Eze handed in his blank paper, his face pale and his hands trembling. His classmates stared in shock, wondering what had happened. The teachers looked at him with concern, surprised by his sudden change. Eze felt ashamed and disappointed in himself. He avoided his friends and stayed away from his usual hangouts. He couldn't face his parents, who had been so proud of him. He wandered through the village, thinking about all the times he had used the pen to avoid studying and all the opportunities he had wasted. The pen had been a shortcut, but it had also cheated him out of true learning. After a few days, Eze found himself at the village library, a place he had rarely visited. He walked among the rows of books, feeling their silent wisdom around him. He picked up a book on a subject he had always struggled with, opened it, and began to read. At first, it was difficult. He had to read the same sentence several times to understand it. But slowly, something amazing happened. He began to learn. With each page he read, his understanding grew, and a new kind of satisfaction filled his heart. Over the next few weeks, Eze worked harder than he ever had. He spent hours studying, asking his teachers for help, and practicing what he learned. Without the magic pen, he realized he could still succeed through his own efforts. His grades slowly improved, not because of a magic pen, but because of his dedication. One day while he was studying under a tree near the school, Eze felt something poking at him from under a root. He dug into the ground and pulled out the magic pen. It sparkled again, just as it had the first day he found it. Eze held it in his hand, feeling its warmth and power. But this time, he didn't feel the same thrill he had before. He now understood that shortcuts might bring temporary success, but they could never replace true knowledge. With a smile, Eze placed the pen back into the ground and covered it with soil. "Thank you for teaching me," he whispered, "but I don't need you anymore." From that day on, Eze became one of the best students in his school. Not because of a magical pen, but because of his hard work and determination. He learned the true power of knowledge and grew to love learning. And as he walked home, he knew he had found something far more precious than magic, the strength to rely on himself. Thanks for watching. Also do so to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell